Let's go Dolphins! Something happened after June 1st that should have every Dolphins fan paying close attention, and honestly, I don't think enough people are talking about it. The front office suddenly has more flexibility, trade rumors around the league are heating up, and now Miami finds itself at a crossroads that could shape the future of this roster. But here's the question nobody can ignore. Are the Dolphins one bold move away from accelerating the development of Malik Willis, or would making a trade right now be a costly mistake? What I'm about to share might split the fan base right down the middle. Some fans believe Miami should stay patient and trust the players already on the roster. Others think this is exactly the moment to be aggressive and bring in proven talent before the rest of the league drives the price up. And when you look at the names being discussed, it's easy to understand why emotions are running high. Before we get into all of that, make sure you've hit the like button if you truly believe the future is bright for the Miami Dolphins. Let's show some positivity and support for the team. And I want to see how optimistic this fan base really is today. Drop this comment right now. Go Dolphins! The best days are ahead of us. I can't wait to see how many fans still believe this team is moving in the right direction. Personally, I think Miami should strongly consider being proactive rather than waiting. The reason isn't simply to make a splash or win headlines. It's because the entire conversation keeps coming back to one thing: properly evaluating Malik Willis. If the organization truly wants answers about what it has at quarterback, then giving him the best possible supporting cast makes a lot of sense. Whether that's through another receiver, a versatile pass catcher, or even a strategic move that strengthens the overall roster, I believe helping your young quarterback develop should be a priority. Now let's talk about why the Dolphins may suddenly have opportunities available that didn't exist just a few weeks ago. Now let's get straight to the story. The first major development is that Miami now has significantly more financial flexibility available after June 1st. According to the information discussed, the Dolphins currently sit with approximately $21.1 million in cap space, placing them in the middle of the league rankings. While some of that money will still need to be allocated toward draft-related expenses, there is a growing belief that Miami has enough room to become active if the right opportunity presents itself, either through free agency or via trade. What makes this situation fascinating is the timing. Around the league, trade activity has already started accelerating. Several major deals have reportedly taken place, creating an environment where teams appear increasingly willing to negotiate. As a result, Miami suddenly finds itself in a position where it could potentially capitalize on opportunities that were not available just a few weeks ago. And this is where things start getting really interesting. The central argument presented is that Miami's biggest priority should not simply be adding talent for the sake of adding talent. Instead, the primary objective should be helping Malik Willis develop. According to the discussion, the evaluation of Willis is viewed as the most important storyline moving forward. Because of that, adding another reliable pass catcher could become a priority. The belief is that giving Willis additional weapons would provide a better environment for determining exactly what he can become. One of the names generating significant attention is Kayshon Boutte. The reasoning behind this potential target is based on both opportunity and production. With changes occurring elsewhere, there is an argument that Boutte could become obtainable. More importantly, several performance metrics highlighted in the discussion paint a picture of a receiver who excelled as a deep threat. His effectiveness on passes traveling 20 or more yards downfield was repeatedly emphasized, along with strong efficiency numbers and contested catch success. The proposed idea is simple. Rather than waiting for a future opportunity, Miami could attempt to acquire him now, allow him to build chemistry with Willis, and potentially establish a long-term relationship before reaching the open market. The suggested cost discussed was relatively modest compared to some blockbuster transactions around the league, making this one of the more intriguing possibilities being floated. But Boutte is not the only player attracting attention. Another fascinating possibility involves tight end Cole Kmet. What stands out here is not just his receiving ability, but the versatility he could potentially bring. The argument presented is that Miami's current tight end group could benefit from another player capable of contributing both as a blocker and as a pass catcher. Kmet's previous production and experience make him an interesting candidate in that regard. There is even speculation that a mid-round draft asset could potentially be enough to start meaningful discussions if circumstances align correctly. And that brings us to perhaps the most polarizing aspect of the entire conversation. How aggressive should Miami actually be? The Dolphins possess future draft capital. They have selections available across upcoming drafts, including multiple picks in certain rounds. The question becomes whether the organization should remain patient and continue building through traditional methods, or whether this is the moment to use some of those assets in pursuit of players who could immediately help Willis's evaluation process. That debate is becoming harder to ignore. Supporters of a more aggressive approach will point to the available cap space, the trade activity happening throughout the league, and the belief that Miami still has clear roster needs. Meanwhile, those favoring patience may argue that preserving future draft resources is the smarter long-term strategy. What cannot be ignored, however, is the recurring theme throughout this discussion. The focus consistently returns to providing support for Malik Willis and creating the best possible environment for evaluating his future. Whether that means adding another wide receiver, acquiring additional pass-catching help, or exploring other roster upgrades, the underlying objective remains the same. And here's where things become even more intriguing. There are still additional names being discussed as possible trade targets, including players at positions that Miami could view as important priorities. Some of those names carry significantly bigger implications than the ones we've already covered, and the potential costs vary dramatically depending on the player involved. Certain options could require only modest investments, while others might force Miami to make much more difficult decisions about its future assets. The conversation gets even more fascinating when we start looking at some of the bigger names that have been connected to potential trade discussions and what those moves could mean for Miami's future. Because while adding depth is one thing, making a move for a player who could potentially become a centerpiece is an entirely different conversation. One of the names generating the strongest reactions is Brian Thomas Jr., and what makes this discussion so compelling is that opinions seem to be all over the place. Some observers see a player who took a step backward and may no longer be viewed as a future star. Others look at the same player and see someone whose best football is still ahead of him. According to the information presented, there remains strong belief in his upside despite a decline in production. The reasoning is understandable. The physical traits remain attractive. The size is there. The athletic ability is there. The versatility to line up in multiple receiver roles is there. Even with concerns about certain aspects of his game, there is still a belief that he possesses the talent to become a major contributor. More importantly, he would come with multiple years of team control remaining, which dramatically changes the risk-reward equation compared to a player nearing free agency. That is a huge factor. When a team acquires a player with several years remaining on a rookie contract, it isn't simply making a move for the present. It is potentially investing in a long-term solution. The discussion highlighted exactly that point. Rather than viewing the move as a short-term rental, it would be an opportunity to secure a player who could remain part of the organization for several seasons if everything develops properly. And when you compare that scenario to some of the other names being discussed, the strategy becomes clearer. This isn't only about finding help right now. It's about identifying players who can help immediately while also becoming part of the future. That philosophy also explains why another frequently mentioned name received a much colder evaluation. Rashad Bateman was included in the discussion, but the overall enthusiasm surrounding that possibility appeared significantly lower. While Bateman previously enjoyed a productive season and even earned a contract extension, the concerns surrounding his most recent production were impossible to ignore. The statistical decline was substantial, and several advanced metrics referenced during the discussion painted a troubling picture. In fact,